So much of parenting really is about relationship.
Especially my parents, they've always been very, very supportive of really anything that I wanted to do, or my siblings.
I think what allows us to be that is the time that we spend together.
I like that I'm never bored.
The house, like I'll get home from soccer or whatever and everybody's like screaming and running around the house.
I find so much joy in the relationship that is built that way. I can still vividly remember, even before that, the first, when Katie came in to me and I was sitting in the living room in our first little home and, telling me that she was expecting. And I didn't know if I could even believe it. I mean, it was just never dreamed, and just being amazed at the beauty of God's love for us. And so it's about getting to know each child.
With Sebastian as a little kid, when he was being difficult, I'd go get something to put together for him, and it would change everything. Like I'd say, here, go put together the spike, or go, fix this, or go do that. That feeling of accomplishment was a way to handle the moment in a positive way, because it helped him develop his gifts.
I am the oldest of 8 in the Cramer family, and doing a lot of youth ministry in the area with a movement in the church called Regnum Christi. So not everybody is inclined to give up that year to do their mission. And I think that being in my family helped me to make that decision that I think was a really good one.
I think some of his leadership as far as being involved in his mission year come from me and Eddie always giving him responsibilities in the home and giving him projects to work on. I think it's helped develop his leadership skills. Do you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's helped his leadership skills. And then over time, that has led him to a deep personal faith.
And then Mary Catherine is next, and she is amazing at bringing beauty into the world and sharing God's beauty through sewing, through singing.
When will I see you again? You left with no goodbye, not a single word was said. No final kiss to see all any sins. I've been singing for churches and doing a lot of Gregorian chant and traditional hymns for a long time now. Especially my parents, they've always been very, very supportive of really anything that I wanted to do, or my siblings.
Right. I think whenever she was 12, her teacher asked us to put her in piano lessons because he noticed that she had a good voice. And so we did that.
But she's always had a passion for art and beauty, and it's just who she is.
The reason you loved me before, baby, please remember me once more. When I see Peter, I see a young man who is just so passionate. He loves the outdoors and he's, in so many ways, he's a very simple young man.
I'm not trying to mask myself, if you will. Not trying to put on my best face. My brothers and sisters, they can see me. They are probably the best people who can tell me how I can progress. And so, it's hard to be that person and say, hey, you can do this better, you can do this better. And it's hard to listen to those people, but if they're the people who can help you progress the most. Those are people you need the most in your life.
Dominic, his dog, he loves his dog, and he's done a great job with him.
Once we went and got him a dog, we realized that was his passion. And when you went and spent the time with him and got him his dog, a total change in his behavior.
I think more than anything, Dominic's one of our middle children, and I think the whole middle child syndrome is real. Like, I mean, I don't think he knew how much we loved him. He'd asked and he asked and he asked. He wanted a lab to be a retriever. He was going to train it, and he kept after us and kept after us. When I took him, we went and picked out a puppy and bought him a dog. It was like he just lit up.
Luke is he likes to tinker with things, and he loves to help others. He's always worried if I am going out at night by myself, he has to come with me to protect me. And I love that, I love that about him. He's a very considerate person. Alexandra, she's very creative.
Her personality is just so big. Of all of our children, I mean, she's never met a stranger. She's always out there, and she just loves greatly. Abigail is right under her. And it's so funny because personality-wise, Abigail is the complete opposite of Alexandra.
Yes.
But in her own way, she is such a joy. I mean, she is very meticulous. She's very structured. She's very consistent. She's extremely reliable.
Because our whole family always ends a day of big, happy smiles on all of my siblings' faces and mine. And even if I was sad that day, I always end up having a good day.
And the craziest thing is the two of them are best friends, right? And then we all love the baby. I mean, there's Ella. Without question, she is the one that has been the most fun because we've had the most time with her.
And we're better parents, right?
So much of parenting really is about relationship. And I reject the notion that we're called to be, our children's best friend, but we are very much called to be an intimate relationship with our children. And that changes as they grow and the dynamic of that changes. But I think our job as parents is to meet them where they are. And again, it goes back to the idea of generosity. It's not about what I like to do in the moment. It should be about what they like to do. I find so much joy in the relationship that is built that way.
I wish the time could stand. I wish the sun never goes down. There's a future ahead of us, but the future can wait. But the future can
I currently am an equine veterinarian, work on horses for a living. So I was blessed in that I grew up in a very Catholic family. I have 2 brothers. The church community was always part of our upbringing. Always intended to get married. Never necessarily thought about, I wanted a family. Never knew that it would necessarily be 8 children, but always wanted a family, saw that as what God wanted for me.
I have a mom and a dad and 1 sister, and that's it. So I grew up in a very small family. So my faith life growing up was good. We went to Mass every Sunday. So when I got to high school, I think I kind of got off the path of a life of holiness because I didn't have a deep prayer life. I came to develop a prayer life through the program Come Lord Jesus. My junior and senior year, I was taught more how to actually pray outside of going to Mass. And that realization that God actually loved me personally changed my life. By the time I got to college, I had an active prayer life.
When I was 18 years old, I was diagnosed with a metastatic form of cancer. It was a tumor that had originated in my scrotum, but had spread into my abdominal lymph nodes as well as into my lung. That was truly the most profound moment of conversion in my life. But after a period of time, I needed to be alone for a little while. And so I told them, look, just give me some space. And so I took a walk out on the farm. And it was, evening was coming on, and I remember very, very well walking through that field that afternoon. And I was scared, I was angry, I didn't know what was coming. I didn't know what lay ahead of me at all. All I knew was that the mass that was taken out was cancerous. And that it became clear to me that either I was going to step up and it was going to be my choice then, or I'd want it. And in particular, the line from the Our Father came to me and said, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. And I said, okay, Lord, I don't know why this is your will, and I certainly don't like it, but if this is your will, then I'll accept it. And when I say that I know God is real the way I know I'm talking to you right now, I didn't hear a voice that day, I didn't see anybody, but God came down to me in that field and he hugged me. He just embraced me, and I was flooded with an absolute sense of peace, an absolute knowledge that God loved me and that I would be okay. I acutely knew that being okay did not mean that I would survive the disease. It genuinely didn't matter in that moment. And so that experience, that moment, absolutely has defined my life. Shortly after that, I began chemotherapy. Before I began treatment, I was informed that the chemotherapy would leave me sterile, that it would prevent me from having children in the future. And willfully walking away from that, I was given the option of freezing semen before I started chemo. I honestly did not know the church's teachings at the time, but my mom had the good sense to say, I think we need to talk to a priest about that. And we did. And I saw a priest who I'm still very close to, who had the strength to tell me that, Eddie, I love you, but the church teaches that that's not okay, that in the long run, that's not in keeping with God's plan for creating life. And it was an extremely difficult decision, but in the long run, I decided not to do that and just began treatment. And so from that point on, I assumed that it was God's will for me not to have children of my own, biological children. I assumed that if he called me to have a family, that I would adopt with my one-day spouse, and it took a long time to accept that. I didn't understand the church's teachings, but I learned a lot about them after that, and but also came to understand the wisdom and beauty in those teachings, and realize why they were important and why that was the right choice, even though I couldn't see it at the time.
I met my husband when I was teaching at Baton Rouge, and he was in vet school. And I fell in love with him, but I did not understand why God asked me and put him as the person he wanted me to be with, because I wanted 10 children and he couldn't have any children because he had had cancer. So I didn't understand why God had put him in my life. So after 3 years of chemotherapy, he survived it. However, they told him at MD Anderson that he would never have children. They said it like that: you will never, ever, ever have children. And so then I meet him later on, and I didn't understand why God would allow me to fall in love with him, since I wanted to have 10 children. But right before our wedding, we met this woman who I was teaching at the time, And she was telling me that she had experienced a miracle getting pregnant with a rosary. And she said her husband, who was a doctor, they had tried for 5 years to get pregnant. Nothing could help. They had tried everything. So this little old lady rosary group came to her and said, if you pray this rosary for a year, y'all will get pregnant. So they prayed it for 11 months and noticed that 2 decades on the rosary had turned gold. And they went to the doctor to find out they had conceived with twins. And so she said, I make rosaries for people to get pregnant, and everyone who's gotten this rosary has gotten pregnant. I said, well, you have to make me one because I want 10 kids and my husband can't have any children. And so the wedding comes, and after the wedding was over, we went back to the hotel room and we prayed the rosary together. And I didn't want to freak him out on the night of our wedding because we were both so excited about the night of our wedding. So in my heart, I said a prayer. I said, Lord, if I can't have 10 children, I'll take 8. And we found out a month later that my first son was due 9 months to the day of the wedding. And now we have 8 children. We have 4 boys and 4 girls. So that's how the story happened.
First of all, my job is not separate from my family, right? I'm a small business owner. I own my own practice. Our business, my family's business, is there to support my family. So it's not that I have these career goals to go glorify myself or to accomplish something for me. The purpose of our work is to support our family financially, primarily. Secondarily, I do have a number of employees, and I have a responsibility to them and their family. But those are responsibilities that my wife and I engage together, and that ultimately our entire family embraces. And so sacrifices I make to go to work a lot, to spend more time there, while on one hand they take time away from me being with with Katie and the kids, it's not about me and what I'm doing. It's really what the family does together. That this is the purpose of our work is to support our family. And so ultimately we do this together. You know, we built our home at our farm so that when I am busy, my kids could still see me. They can still run over to the barn and see me, but we're always doing it together. It's not my business, it's our business.
My husband is he's very selfless and very generous. And he gives of himself totally and completely, and he holds nothing back. I'm sorry. He's never, when he comes home every afternoon, he goes to each kid and asks them how their day was. He doesn't come plop on the sofa or anything like that. He genuinely wants to know where each kid is, and he comes to me and asks me how my day went. He's just a very selfless person. If he gets up in the middle of the night for work all the time, and he never complains about it, he never comes home the next day and just says, oh, I'm too tired, I can't spend time with y'all. He's generous in giving himself to the relationships with his children. And so my kids know that they're loved. He's just a hard worker. He's a man of God. I've never seen him ever go to bed without kneeling by the bed. He kneels by his bed every night. He goes to holy hour in the middle of the night once a week because he knows if it was at a different time, he couldn't go. He loves God deeply.
And my wife, she's the most generous human being I've ever met. She is just, she genuinely never thinks of herself. I mean, she will give and give and give. That she has just the biggest heart of anyone I know. And, you know, what other quality matters? You know, when she's that kind of a person, how could you not love her? The most complete act of selfish love is not what Katie and I do in our family. It's him being raised up on the cross for us. If someone's struggling because they have 1 kid or 2 kids, look, I don't hold myself up as like, you need to be like me. I say, I get it. It is hard for that person right now where they are. And I say, look at a crucifix and realize that he loves you. Wherever you are, however you are, just take one more step. And then, and Christ will bring you to the next one after that. So at the end of the day, I really mean it when I say it's really just God. I mean, it was one of those things, you know, my experience with cancer and the expectation of my infertility happened long before I even knew Katie. And so it was something that was very, very difficult for me to accept. I did not grow up in a large family, but I always wanted children. Maybe never thought about having 8 children, but you know, but I always wanted a family. I always, you know, planned and dreamed of being a father. But through prayer, I did come to accept that I would not have children, or expected not to have children. And I was there before I met Katie. But we did. We had a conversation about my expectation of not being able to have children. So we never really talked about how big of a family we would have.
I just knew that this is who God wanted me to marry. So I just trusted in that. I mean, he was my best friend. I could tell him anything. And so it was very clear to me that this is who I was supposed to be with. So I just had to trust that whatever happened was going to happen. You know you're loved by God when you have a faith life. When you stay plugged into prayer, you know you're loved. And then you have what you need to help love your children through their times where they're not behaving like you want them to behave or think that they should behave. And so you have to be a reflection of the Father's love when they're acting in a really frustrating way. And so definitely, if I didn't have a faith, it would be hard to handle those moments, no doubt.
I would say that, you know, in parenting, and I do believe that like 2, 3 young children was the hardest time of our lives by far. I mean, having 8 kids is way easier than having 3. So much difficulty in marriage really comes from selfishness. And there is a real sacrifice that comes in learning to say, you know, this was mine and now I give it to you. As we've become more generous, as the family has required us to become more generous, I think we also become more joyful.
We are the Cramer family,
and we are joyfully big!
Are you searching for answers? Discover your true identity. Stay tuned to Shalom World.